I'm Killian Bonner, this is Full Rotation Fitness, and welcome to the FRF Athlete Podcast, where I bring on some of the top field athletes out there. We discuss lifestyle, mindset, and what it really takes to reach pinnacle fitness and perform at the highest level possible in their chosen sport. All brought to you in the most accessible and digestible way possible. You don't want to miss this.
Joining us on the podcast today is All-Star Limerick hurler Sean Finn. Sean discusses his entire career from academy level all the way up to inter-county senior All-Ireland success. Stay tuned.
Sean Finn, how are we?
I'm all good now, Killian. All good.
Thanks for taking the call today. So Sean, just kind of want to discuss, just go through your hurling career, your desire. Where did you really kind of, get the love for sport? So are we going all the way back to underage? Was it always a dream to kind of just excel in the sport of hurling, or did you ever look at other sports as well?
I suppose I've grown up. I've always come from a GA background, and that my father played hurling with Limerick. All my relatives played hurling, and hurling was inevitably going to be the sport that I was always going to play. When you look at it that way, but I suppose of all, I got exposure to rugby, got exposure to soccer. I was a huge fan of soccer when I was growing up, and I suppose when I was growing up, I wanted to become a soccer player, and I really enjoyed playing soccer, and I continued to play soccer in the off season. But I suppose I'm a victim of the self-fulfilling prophecy in that I was born in January. I was taken into an academy at 13, 14, and I've invariably got the guidance and a coaching that has led me to where I am today. But in that sense, I considering I came from a GA background, that's why I think that I have, I suppose, progressed in GA, and obviously my love for it is strong as well.
And Sean, was there much of a kind of battle at home? Like, of course, your dad, Brian, got a bit of silverware with Limerick '94 when the Munster final. Was there much of an added pressure to say, you know what, now, Sean, we're going to get him right for hurling? Was there more of a pressure added for the sport?
There wasn't. My parents were always encouraging us to get involved in every sport we could, and it wasn't just sport. We were involved in athletics and music as well. And I suppose you weren't pressured to attend GA. It's hurling in general, but one memory that sticks fondly with me, and that I remember when I was 16 and I was involved with the academies, and 15, I think I wasn't really making the A team. And as a young lad, when you're not making A teams, you tend to be hard on yourself. And I remember at the times my father had to pack my bag and collect me from the GA field where I was down kicking soccer ball with the lads, and forced me to go train every Tuesday and Thursday evening and drive me to Rackeel. And I suppose it's funny that I do remember that, because I remember there's times when I hated playing hurling growing up. And that was as a result of not being at the level that other lads were, like Ian Lynch and Tom Morrissey, when I was 15 years of age. And you think, I suppose, it's the be-all, end-all at 15 if you're not making those teams. And I would encourage all young players, and I do encourage my brother to not get down on himself when he's not making minor teams, But yeah, a lot of it is down to my father. But there wasn't any pressure as such. He kind of slags that he's won league medals and Munster medals, but I suppose that All-Ireland medal is the one that everyone's chasing, and I'm lucky to have a number of those now, and hopefully a few more in the future. But that's how I suppose I've grown up. But there's a huge love of GA in my family, my father and my mother and my uncles as well. So it's great to see the enjoyment that they get out of GA, and especially the 2020 year. Really, really enjoyed it, and it's provided a huge lift to those people.
Absolutely. And I suppose when we got to the year then, 2013, 17, we're on the minor squad. And I know you said you weren't kind of up to the mark. Maybe with that 14, 15, 16, were those kind of 3 years where you really kind of sat down and talked to yourself and kind of analysed your own game? Because of course that's a very young age to kind of tell yourself, I need to improve it here, and ultimately you're going to set out a plan for those years ahead. When you were 16, did it just click? Did it just happen? Kind of talk through that kind of process.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading a book recently about the self-fulfilling prophecy, in that I was born in January. I wasn't too big, but I was probably more, I suppose, developed than a guy, I suppose, who was born in November. And I was taken into those academies, and there was a structure in place where you're getting great coaching, and that then obviously made me a better player. So at 14, I made the 21st squad, didn't start. 15 then was dropped to a B team. where I got exposure to more game time, played corner forward. And then come 16, where I probably got more coaching. I played wing back at the under 16 level, and we won that All Ireland at that level. But I never actually played cornerback, which is quite funny. And then when we went to minor at 17s, I remember my first time I ever played was in a game in UL on AstroTurf against Dublin. And they said, look, Sean, we're going to play you cornerback. We'll see how you get on. And I remember that I actually played quite well that day. And it was probably a game that has changed, or it's probably I've only ever played cornerback ever since. Never played wing back, never played corner forward ever again for Limerick. And it wasn't that I was always good. I just probably was exposed to that level of training and that level of coaching, and the structure in Limerick hurling is so good now that players, when they are within that setup, they do tend to progress. And it's funny, it'd be interesting to see if those that weren't brought in, could they have begun to get to a level, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like Aaron Gillan is a good example of that, in that he was always in that structure, in that academy, got to minor level, was thereabouts, but never really pushed on 21s level. And then Fitzgibbon essentially made Aaron the player he is today. And it just shows how players develop differently. But I suppose being in that academy over the couple of years has really stood to me, and has stood to the likes of Cian Lynch and Tom Marcy as well.
And it's like, they're nearly molding you for one certain task. And, you kind of really molded into that cornerback, situation. Like even we look at a 100-meter sprinter, sole purpose, let's run 100 meters as fast as possible. You're given a certain position. Let's make Sean Finn now ultimately an all-star. You certainly became that. You've seen the pinnacle of the sport. Jumping into under 21 hurling then, just in terms of that All-Ireland win, that was obviously the first time that you kind of graced the complete pinnacle of the sport in that age. Nervous wise, did they kind of disappear minor level up to 121, or was it always there?
I suppose the group that we had in Tom Morrissey, Cian Lynch, there was Ronan Lynch, Klein, Barry Nash, and myself, and that group, we always had high expectations of ourselves, and there was probably high expectations of ourselves from outside our camp, from 14 up until minor, and it was a huge disappointment losing the All-Ireland final, minor final in 2014. But a lot of that team went into 21 levels, and even going into that campaign, I think a lot of players would say that we didn't know what we were made of, or whether we get past the first round against Tipperary. I think we were 7 to 10 points up after a couple of minutes, and we surprised ourselves how much of a lead we'd got. And that kind of carried into the Munster Championship in the Munster final against Clare. We won that. And that probably bred the confidence to go on and win the All-Ireland. And I think a lot of that team from the academy went on to minor level, went on to 21s, and you rarely see them now at senior level. But the success, did we always think we had a good group? We always did. And we always wanted to win. And obviously we're lucky we have won a lot over the last couple of years.
And like, even going from that underage structure, like it did look like winning became a habit for you. To experience that much, at a young age, you're starting off your career. We haven't looked at intercounty yet. And when you did, finally make that team, 19 years of age, you got your debut. A day before your birthday, you got your second match, and you were hit with one of the lowest points in your career, I think, to date, tearing your cruciate ligament. That all happened in the space of 6 weeks. Was there a big kind of fallback, setback in your own mind, mentality-wise?
Yeah, I suppose I was drafted in 2016, and Joe Connor was in the camp as well. Great strength and conditioning guy, one of the best in the country, in my opinion, and got really exposure to really good training. And then I was really enjoying that for November, December. Was obviously brought into the Fitzgibbon team, and that was going well. Done the cruciate, I suppose, in February, the first week of February. And it was a blow, but I didn't really know how much the GA wasn't. I hadn't a senior campaign played, so I didn't miss it that much. Looking back now, that injury was probably nearly a good thing that happened to me, and that I got to go away traveling for a number of weeks. Got a break from the GA, and you oftentimes, when you're in the GA and you're in the intercounty scene, you're in a bubble, and you don't think of traveling, you don't think of what you're going to do outside. And when that's taken, when the GA is taken away from you, it's a huge blow. But looking back on it, it was a good thing, if you could say that about a cruciate injury. Considering I've never really had any knock-on effects since, but it was upsetting because I saw lads then playing during the summer in against Tipperary, against Clare, and I knew I had the potential to be there, but I wasn't because there's obviously an injury. But that is the case when all injuries are there. But I suppose going back to the Fitzgibbon campaign, I remember going in and I wasn't really a high-profile player at all in that sense. I was looking up, I suppose, playing against guys and playing with guys that I would have considered much better than me, in the likes of Tony Kelly, John McGrath, and I was now in a position where I was beginning to play with them. And I suppose the biggest compliment Brian Lohan ever gave me was a day below Carlow. We played Carlow IT down there on a miserable Tuesday evening, and I was cornerback, and I think they were stuck for players, I think the same day. And he came in at halftime, I think we were getting well beaten, and he roared out, he said, "Lads, there's a fella in the corner here, Sean Finn. None of you know who he fucking is, but he's the best player on the pitch." And he didn't know who I was. No one else probably knew who I was, but it was a huge compliment that he'd given me, and I still remember it. But it was the Fitzgibbon campaign. I think a lot of players who do play absolutely love it. It's great to play with lads from other counties. And I go back to that, like John McGrath, he's a good friend of mine. I would have looked up and I saw him playing in 2015, and I was saying, "Gene, he's a great player," and I was lucky to be able to play with him and good friends with him. Yeah.
Yeah, Fitzgibbon, I do find, having experience just to kind of looking at players who've come from WIT, I suppose, back home in Waterford, it does really kind of, if you can gel with people from other different clubs, sometimes they're your rivals as well. It just opens, I think, another nature of hurling. It becomes a lot more freedom. I think you obviously got success in 2018. Any comparison between, I suppose, three main trophies that you could say you have in your career would be, your club championship you won in 2014, your Fitzgibbon in 2018. Of course, we know the pinnacle is All Ireland hurling. Any kind of comparison between Fitzgibbon and club, because you're obviously growing up with guys with club, and I suppose you're only knowing these guys for 2-3 years with Fitzgibbon.
Yeah, interesting one. I suppose in 2014 we won the intermediate championship with the club. And I probably took it for granted in that I was so young when we won it, and I said, "Gee, we're going to win these every couple of years now, And we've had very little success with the club since. With the college, then you only have 2 or 3 years to win something, and the lads that you're winning them with, the Fitzgibbon, they're from different counties, and it's great to go out and enjoy the success with them. But I would really like to win something with the club over the next couple of years, and I feel as if I can give more now that I'm a senior member of the team, whereas when we won it in 2014, I was only first year onto the panel. So there was other senior members and I was only contributing what I could, but I feel as if I need to contribute a lot more now. And I feel as if at the time I probably took the success with the club a bit for granted, in that I thought I was so young and naive, thinking that these would happen every couple of years, and we've yet to taste that success since. So but yeah, I really enjoyed we won a freshman campaign with UL 2014. It's just all the players will say, going out with the lads from college after those games, when you're getting a bus down from Dublin, a bus down from WIT, and you're inside in the bus and you're drinking away and you're slagging each other. Those are fun memories that I'll always have. And I suppose there's that mutual respect between players that you play with in Fitzgibbon when you're playing in Croke Park or in the Gaelic grounds, where them, you hate each other, I suppose, when you're playing in the field, but you've a great respect for them and a fun memories together. So yeah, I suppose there's a huge difference, but it's quite similar in some sense. Yeah,
exactly. Like you're playing with a family who are your club, and then of course you're kind of forming one then with the college. How were your studies in terms of juggling life? Did you start prioritizing more journal wise, just in terms of setting time schedules, because it can get very overwhelming. Of course, assignments are due, exams are due.
Yeah, I suppose last year I'm doing the ACA county exams at the moment, and it's probably a challenging job to balance both hurling and study. So at the moment, I'm just trying to focus on work and study, and hopefully be a lot more prepared in June, when hopefully the intercounty season is in full swing and my exams are coming along. But I suppose you touched on the subject of journaling. It's never something I really focus on, and you might be able to elaborate on what you think of it. And it's something I definitely see huge value in writing down and goal setting, and I suppose journaling, I suppose your feelings and how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis, especially I suppose in an environment where we're stuck at home and we're in lockdown and stuff. I suppose, have you done something like that in journaling and stuff like that? I haven't really focused on any of that, to be honest.
Yeah, I find a huge kind of positivity throughout your day, just in terms of getting your work done. For me personally, and something that I do add with the client members that on the Explosive Athlete program, is we journal every day. You write your intent. You know, your intent on today. Is it a workout scheduled in? Are we focused on mobility? And you know, even with sprint sessions, are we looking on power, just focusing on speed, or is it an endurance session? So I
Mm.
think being really familiar with the type of athlete you want to become today, that's going to excel you. You know, really kind of thinking deep on why we want to make it. You know, we discussed when you were saying you need to be up to that level from minor. Of course, 24 still down to the B, but back up to the pinnacle of the sport. So when a stage does drop, how do we get back up to that level? How do we reassess? So it's not nothing too strenuous, just those 5-10 minutes a day, start your day right.
Definitely see the value in it, and I suppose it's accountability too, and that you're writing something down and you can look at the sheet and you can say, look, I haven't done that, and you're the only person accountable for that. So I can definitely see the value in it, and I suppose something that I journaling, I could say I've X amount of things to do today, whether that's yoga, a bit of Pilates, a bit of mobility work. Those all things helping in becoming a better athlete, I've no doubt, and it's something I must focus on. But yeah, I do. I can see the value in it, and I suppose that journaling can be applied, I suppose, to both sport, business, your day-to-day life too. In that, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, if you're with a partner, you know, dedicate an hour just that you're spending together, no mobile devices, all that kind of clarity throughout the day. It might seem a bit overwhelming, you know, we're jotting these things down, but it does become second nature.
Yeah,
You know, you're just making the day the way you want it to become. It can get very overwhelming depending on your life schedule, family situation, work, job, sport, of course. And I think if you can just get it all down on one piece of paper, it becomes real and it becomes
yeah,
manageable.
I
And
totally
you
agree with
know,
that. And I
you can.
think you're more likely to apply what you're writing down. You might have intentions, okay, I'm going to do 20 minutes or half an hour of yoga or Pilates. But when you write it down, I think you're one step further to actually doing it. I suppose you might have read the book Atomic Habits, or I think they talk a bit about that in habit stacking and routine. But I suppose it's just forming a routine. It can be informal too, that journaling too. It's not about, right, it can be a quick jotting
Yeah,
down of what you want to do. Yeah, I can definitely see the value. It's something I must consider going forward. I can definitely see how it can be of value to someone if they want to improve in business, in life, and in sport.
exactly. Like we're not talking of an English essay here. We're just, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
couple of bullet points just to kind of set your day right.
Mhm.
Sean, just going to 2020, just the year just gone. How was it with an All Ireland medal just before Christmas?
Yeah, I suppose from the start of the year, none of us knew where we were, and the club campaign, it was one I've enjoyed, and I probably speak for a lot of players in that it was a club campaign that I enjoyed more than ever, and that I could focus solely on the club. And then when that was aside, we went into the inter-county season, and we got lucky. I suppose it was in the weather that time of year was a worry in that, was it going to be cold, miserable, and snowy? It was lovely for the whole couple of weeks leading up to the first game. It was beautiful. Training was so enjoyable. The games, I suppose, came thick and fast, and I suppose as a player, that's quite good in that you're not training, like the train during the week isn't as you would typically have in a preseason. So the games are coming thick and fast, and you're improving each week. But yeah, the Galway game was a tough game that you could argue probably the toughest we ever had all year. And then the All Ireland final, but it was so sweet, I suppose, from being inside the camp. The performance in itself was the most satisfying thing. Okay, we got the result, but there was, I suppose, the view that we didn't, and we weren't performing to a level that people expected of us. But we knew we were going well. We were winning games, albeit at times the hard way. But you need to be able to do that at times. And I think the most satisfying thing about that All Ireland final in 2020 was that we got a performance that we were very proud of. And that showed and reflected in the result. By, I suppose, we win by 10 points in the end. But Waterford were no easy task either. They're a good team. They're well coached. think they really bought into their setup this year in comparison to maybe other years. And a lot of the focus, I suppose, the first game was on how poor Cork were, but very little recognition was granted towards Waterford and how they set up and how well and the question that they posed. And we were under no illusion within that Ireland final, considering we had to play them in the Munster final. And we really found that game tough. But yeah, we were under no illusion within that Ireland final how difficult a team they were to play against. And we knew we needed to perform to the level that we did perform at in order to beat them. But yeah, we got a couple of days together after the All-Ireland final to enjoy the success. I suppose different to 2018 in that it was only ourselves, we were in our bubble, and there was no crowds. But in one sense, it was nearly nicer in that we got to really enjoy it together in comparison to 2018, where it was thousands of people and everyone ringing you and everyone looking to meet up with you and stuff. And in one sense, it was nice. You know, we got the 2 or 3 days, spend it together, enjoyed it, had a couple of drinks, small few, and but it was lovely. We think we went back to work by the Thursday, but really enjoyed the couple of days afterwards. And then Christmas came, the spike of the virus came, and we settled back down into lockdown. But yeah, I think the most satisfying thing about that Ireland final was performance, and I think a lot of players would say that the performance was something to be proud of.
Absolutely, like the performance was so impressive because there wasn't really kind of any backlash at all with the Waterford camp. Like they did perform well. They built themselves, that confident that year to perform at a certain capacity, just in terms of their fitness levels. I thought was the best we've seen so far. But the fact that you were able to still portray that performance, that's what made it so just kind of blow us away in terms of performance-wise, especially that second half. The way you kind of overlapped with your positioning, what was truly amazing.
Well, the testament to them for being 3 points down at half time. It was we performed so well in the first half, and next thing you're going in half time and you're only 3 points up, and you're saying, "Gee, this is not going to be easy." But I suppose we had a good start to the second half, and that probably carried itself in for the rest of the game. So yeah, it was really, really satisfying.
And of course, with the quick successions of that season, how important are your unseen hours? When nobody's watching. What kind of year did you really hone in on the gym wise in terms of peaking right for a game? Because of course, Sean, like your physique is outstanding in terms of holding that muscle mass, but having the same energy from minute 1 to minute 70. Just kind of talk us through the kind of sole purpose you train for.
Yeah, I suppose we had got exposure to, I suppose, an academy. We were in the gym, albeit not lifting weight as such. We're doing a lot of technique work growing up, and that was from 16 to minor. And then in minor level, we started lifting a bit of weight. But when I done my cruise shit, I was in the gym 7 days a week, and I was doing upper body 7 days a week and a small bit of my leg, and I came back quite upper, I suppose, top heavy. And I think actually that those couple of months, those 10 months that I spent in the gym have really actually, they're still standing to me, the gains that I made 4 or 5 years ago are really standing to me now. And it's only about maintaining that and building on that, and I really set the groundwork in 2016 that I'd be able to build on. But in the gym work now, we I suppose, and yourself, different programs are applicable to different times of the year, where at the start of the year you might be building muscle, and I suppose a lot of plyometric work then in the middle of the season. We're just trying to maintain what you have and injury prevention. But yeah, I do focus a bit on the gym. I do go during the year, but during the campaign, I suppose we're encouraged to go during the year, but I tend to know my body, and I suppose a lot of players know the body more than the coach, and it's important to understand that. And during the season, I don't typically go that often. I'd only go for an injury prevention purposes rather than trying to build muscle mass during the season. But there's huge benefits in the gym work that we're doing. You can see, I suppose, physically we're in good shape. Obviously that can improve on, but I suppose other teams are also looking to get to that level, and it's up to us then to maintain and improve what we have in order to stay on top. Yeah,
exactly. And just compared to a team setting and your own personal training, do you find there is a difference in intent or attitude, training with 30 guys or training on your own? Do you find it's harder to portray, 100% consistency on your own, or is it, are you on par with both?
Yeah, I suppose going into a gym setting with 20 to 30 lads, it's often easy to get caught up in conversation and stuff. So it's up to the individual. Some people prefer going on their own. They feel they're more focused. They're going in, they're doing the program, they're gone again. And whereas if you get in with a team, it's very easy to kind of do your bit, chat away, and before you know it, you're 2 hours spent inside there, and you might have only half an hour work done. So I suppose it's down to the individual. But I suppose when you're on your own, you're on your own, and it's very easy to kind of say, no, I won't do that set, So it's up to the individual. I do like going on my own, but I also do like meeting lads at the gym. But I think it comes down to the mindset too, that you have to understand why you're going to the gym as an athlete. You're not going there to look good. You're there to make yourself a better player. But I probably learned that. I suppose I was going to the gym growing up that I wanted to fill out the t-shirt that I was wearing on a Tuesday night or a Saturday night. Now it's gone to a stage where I kind of looking to be a better athlete, whether it's, I suppose, be faster, be quicker off the mark as a cornerback, that kind of stuff. It's changed a bit, my focus. But yeah, I suppose years gone by, it would have been a different story. I would have been focusing more.
Yeah, I think we can all kind of relate, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, we want to look top class in a shirt on a night out. That's hands down. I think we'll all agree with that. But of course, when we come into the later years of our, sporting career, like, look, let's not forget you're only 25, but you do need to look at a sole purpose. Like, why am I here?
Yeah,
why am I really, like, why am I maxing out on this exercise right now? Why am I putting myself to the point of muscular failure? I think having that conversation in your head without an answer, motivation will drop very drastically.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that I suppose if you know why you're doing it, it's a lot easier to do it. And I suppose when you're talking about your last rep and stuff, that will invariably make you do that. And then it comes down to the individual. I've often said to my brother now, he's at minor level and maybe not to the level he wants to be at, but the choices he makes now from 18 to 22 will determine how far he goes. Oftentimes they're bringing this far, they're in academy to 18, 19. But what he does now on his own and the decisions that he makes on his own are going to determine whether he plays inter-county hurling with Limerick. And I think that is quite important. And it's probably important to get that across to young lads, in that you have to be able to make your decisions and you have to want to play for Limerick. You have to want to succeed as an athlete. And if you are going to do that, you're going to be brought a certain way, but ultimately decisions you make yourself, whether you go to the gym or not, whether you go for a run instead of going drinking with your buddies. Those are decisions that are going to make you an athlete. I think everyone does have the potential, in my opinion, to be that player that they want to be. But again, it comes down to decisions you make, and those decisions can be small, but a lot of those small decisions combine to make a big difference. But the gym, I do enjoy going to the gym as well, and I understand why I'm going to it. So I suppose that makes it easier to go, because I do enjoy it.
Exactly. Look, you have to have the enjoyment, and once the understanding is on par, it's just going to keep happening. And even when you were discussing the small decisions, all those small decisions over years time, it makes you that person, makes you that player you want to be, and all that takes is that you've made it on your own. So of course you're going to go in with the team, you're going to train for that hour, but if you've made the decision after that training that I'm going to stretch for 10 minutes, that decision is so powerful, and over time it just keeps happening. And the next thing, we're now turning up 10 minutes beforehand. We're doing an extra bit of foam rolling, or we're actually hitting frees over the bar if it's a field session, and it all depends and it all adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And in that, you're staying 20 minutes after doing a bit of stretching and stuff, or you're arriving a half an hour before training to do a bit of activation, do a bit of striking. That breeds and encourages others to do the same thing, and invariably makes you a better team. But I suppose as an individual, you mightn't think that going to training 40 minutes before training and go for puck around or taking sidelines, doing it once or twice doesn't make a difference. But if you do it once or twice or 3 times a week over 2 years, how significant that is in comparison to not doing it at all, I think those small decisions, albeit when they're being made, they don't seem like they're a lot. Over time, they do add up.
Yeah, and even that's when we go back to the journal, and we're not just turning up for a puck round. We're now writing down, okay, so this is the skill development that I want to hit now before training. I want to have 15 strikes on the run over the bar in a row. Job is done. Instead of we're not just going around to just be there for that time. So once you're showing up with intent in everything, I do believe you become a higher grade over player, over competitor. But it does feed on. It brings the atmosphere. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
you know your mate is doing it. You're best mates with him, so you're going to go up and show up with him as well. So it does add into the team atmosphere as well, and ultimately you'll become that leader.
Yeah, it's contagious. Even this year now, I've seen Barry Nash and Rich English and Keane Lynch and Aaron Gillan. There's four lads that I can name off the top of my head that are barely always there 40 minutes, half an hour. And oftentimes they'd have to be encouraged not to come too early because the training is long enough and tough enough as it is. So I suppose that's just the player they are. But that is contagious, and that I see them doing. I see Rich English doing it. Barry Nash, they're competing against me for the same position. So I then encouraged to do the same thing, you know. So yeah, it's definitely contagious, and all in all, it's great for the team.
And Sean, your future career then, are we looking to be a truly decorated hurler? Just, let's see how far we can go physical wise. Just the kind of athlete that you are now, do you always have the feeling, I can be better next year? I can always be better.
I think so, yeah. And when I got that All-Star in 2018, I was saying, like, why are they giving me this thing? And I can still say it in 2019, where I was like, I'm nowhere near the player that I think I should be or think I could be. And I suppose as long as that's there and that opinion of myself is there, I'll hopefully continue to improve and try and be a better player. I do think there's a lot more that I can do and a lot more I can improve on. But yeah, I suppose I have hopefully a long career ahead of me. I'd like to get to a point where I enjoy hurling so much in that oftentimes you'll be going to big games in Croke Park and there's 80,000, 85,000 people there and everyone's enjoying themselves outside the bus, whereas you're sitting in the bus shaking and you're looking out at someone on the street, your buddy waving in at you and say, gee, I'd love to be them. And them out in the street are saying, gee, I'd love to be inside that bus playing the game. And I'd love to get to a point where I'm on that bus and I absolutely want to be nowhere else. And just to really live in the moment, because oftentimes you can play those big games and you're often, they pass so quickly and you don't enjoy them as much as you should. You should enjoy, I'd love to get to the point where I enjoy playing the game. I love going to the stadium, enjoy the preparation, rather than playing the game, hopping on the bus after winning and looking back and saying how great that was. I'd love to be present in the moment and enjoy it for what it is, rather than looking back and acknowledging how unreal it was. And I suppose that's something I'd love to get to, a point I'd love to get to over the next couple of years.
Okay. Very, very interesting that you are saying that. Is it more of an overwhelming factor or is it a nerve factor as well? Because of course, present in the moment, yeah, that is a huge thing. And of course, you've already corrected that in 2014. You weren't really there with your club, even though you've won it. You thought more were going to come. Is that kind of the same situation that you're in now, or you were in the last kind of year or two?
Well, I suppose it is always like players understandably have nerves going into big games because they have high expectations on themselves. They want to perform individually and they want to perform collectively. And I suppose that pressure in itself, or that expectation of yourself, brings pressure, brings nerves going into these games. And then I suppose with those nerves, it's very hard to really enjoy it. So I'd love to set aside those and just really enjoy it and forget about the result. The result to look after yourself if your process in place. And was it always there? Maybe it's building every year. Maybe the pressure is building, the expectations are building every year. But I don't often get too nervous for games. I don't, and talk about, I suppose, ways in order to set me down for games. I often go for a 20-minute snooze and I feel like it resets my mind. But was it always there, that level of nerves building up? It probably wasn't. But I definitely have acknowledged and recognized it over the last year or two, in that I'd love to really enjoy this moment, in that I'd love to really enjoy an All-Ireland semi-final. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion.
Yeah, and look, it all just comes with experience. You know, you
Yeah.
have a fair few matches under your belt in terms of playing in front of 80,000 people, and I think it just does develop over time. You know, maybe the next campaign, 2021, it might be completely different. We're just there, totally present in the moment, but I think, look, you're completely present in training. It's very clear to see that body and mind, once you're on the field of play, you know, you've become that powerhouse now in the full back line. And even, you know, with the gym setting, I do believe that has a huge factor to play on, just with the confidence off the field. It's always there on the field. I think that's a huge battle for your mindset, you know, to be able to, you know, you're going to be marking a lot of different guys throughout your career, but to be able to say, look, I believe I've more unseen hours than him done. And, you know, already before the ball is thrown in, that's one up on you all, totally.
Yeah, and that probably comes down to those individual decisions we're talking about, that you know going into a game that you're as prepared as you ever could be, and you feel as if you have more done than the guy that you're going marking. And I suppose confidence in your preparation is quite important. Knowing that you have the work done in training, you push yourself to the limit of training, and what you've been exposed to training is higher and harder and tougher than what you're going to be exposed to in a match. And I think that is definitely the case for us at the moment, in that our trainings are so difficult. We're put under pressure. We're put to the pin of our collar in terms of fitness levels. I suppose I'm lucky in the sense I'm marking the best hurlers in the country, in my opinion, I suppose 4 days a week in Aaron Glenn and Peter Casey and Graham O'Cahy. So I can take huge confidence in that I'm able to manage those lads and then go in and mark players that I feel are not that level, or if they are at that level, I'll be able to manage them. So I suppose, being exposed to those lads has brought me on significantly over the last couple of years.
Yeah, is that like if you're seeing them scoring down and the other end of the opposition, getting them marking, you know, potentially the best hurlers as well. But if you're with them, you know, like you said, 4 days a week, totally.
I see Peter Casey coming out of the games there at times, and I'd often shake my head and turn around to Nicky and start laughing and just have complete pity to the cornerback at the other side of the field, having to try to deal with him with 20 minutes to go, because I can rest assured it's not an easy task now to be dealing with him anytime. But when you're sort of lagging a bit with 15 minutes on the clock and you see this fella coming in, it's an encouraging sight from a Limerick perspective, but I wouldn't like to be on the receiving end of it.
Sean, nutrition and sleep wise, is it something that you've looked later on in your career, just in terms of the last since 2016 intercounty hurling? But like you said, you're with the academies. Was it implemented from the get-go?
Yeah, I suppose in college it wasn't something I really thought that was. I kind of
think all college students can say that.
I was getting away with going to training only with a slice of toast or some rice cakes, and I got away with it. But it is definitely something I focused on over the last 2-3 years, and it is. I don't understand. I couldn't get away with doing that stuff now. My diet has to be, when I'm training, it has to be in top order. And you know more than anyone how important it is. And even peace of mind, knowing that you're going into a training session on a Tuesday, knowing that you're fully fueled and you're ready and your body is ready for it. Because oftentimes, if you haven't really yet gone into a Tuesday session, you'll be doubting yourself straight away, and that, geez, I'm not ready for this. But yeah, I focus a lot on diet. We've good standards in place in the nutrition we have over the last couple of years, and a lot of players are aware of what they need to be eating. But yeah, it's something that is so important, and can't be underestimated how important it is to become a better athlete. And that comes down to performance, but it always comes down to cutting down body fat, putting on muscle mass. They're small things, but again, when they're all put together, are quite important. But yeah, once upon a time, I thought I could get away with eating whatever I wanted. And I worked in a chipper for a number of years too. I actually worked in the All-Ireland final in 2018. I worked in a chipper this Saturday for a few hours before the Sunday game. I didn't eat anything from the chipper that day, but I was eating quite a lot of it over the years. So that has significantly changed. Yeah.
Working in the chipper on the same year you won the All-Ireland. That's a fair statement.
Yeah. The day before, I'd say, but yeah. No, it's something I've really focused on and really improved over the last year. And it's always something you can continually improve. And I do think it's a huge value to my performance levels in training and in games.
Yeah, and even just looking at it at a sense that it is another just training factor. You're looking at an exercise, I can improve on that, but you're also looking at your dinner. I can improve on that for next time. Can we add in another green? And it just simply goes down like that, the logistics side of training, and it just becomes a lot easier to manage that way.
Yeah.
Sean, we've got through a fair chunk today. I think we've learned, a hell of a lot in terms of where you've come with your career. You've quite a few medals. You've reached the pinnacle of sport. You're only 25 years of age. Usually when I introduce someone and I say there's an all-star hurler, you think they're at the later end of the spectrum with their age, but not at all. You're only getting started, man. Delighted you jumped on board. And any kind of couple of pointers just for the rest of the lockdown, anything that you kind of do every single day just to keep on top of, I suppose, positivity and just, your own direction?
Yeah, I suppose there's a small few things that I try as introduced in the new year, how I can improve. I think I've seen huge value in getting up early in the morning. Mind you, I absolutely love my sleep, and I find it quite difficult in the morning, but it's something I do see huge benefit. And I know that there's a book out there, the 5 a.m. Club, and I wouldn't get up at 5 a.m., but 7 o'clock would be the time that I'd look to get up and try to get an hour study done in the morning. And I think it's good for your mind to get out of bed. If you don't have, I suppose, a normal routine, getting up early like that, I've seen huge benefits in it. Definitely screen time on my phone. I'm lucky that my phone at the moment, there's something wrong with the battery. So I think I went from 4 hours on my phone to about 20 minutes. And
Brilliant.
That is just, we all have intention, and we all know and acknowledge and realize how often we spend on our time on our phone, and we all know that we shouldn't be spending that time on our phone. But it's quite difficult to step away from it. You really have to focus on putting your phone away for X amount of hours during the day. So I think limiting your screen time on your phone is quite important. And exercise, I suppose, it's put that underline and get out and do a bit of exercise, whether it be a walk, a swim. I'm doing a bit of swimming now in the sea at the moment. Well, I wouldn't say a swim, it's a dip. It's running.
If you're hard, man.
I come out fairly quickly. I'm not inside or swimming as such, but I find the cold water very good for the head, good for the mind, especially if you're busy day at work. So yeah, I suppose exercise, get up early in the morning, and screen time on the phone, get off the phone.
Exactly. Like they're your non-negotiables. Like that's something that you're going to abide by every day. It does set you up right. It sets the intent. No, really like that, Sean. And I do hope people will kind of add this into their own daily regime. And I love the fact that at a young age, you decided where to improve, where you really want to reach. As a person, because it is all self-development. There needs to be a selfish factor. But of course, you're a teammate who ultimately dies in their boots every single game. Sean, thanks again, man. Delighted you jumped on.
Looking forward to it. Cheers, man. Take it easy.